Hello, everyone. Today we'll continue talking about Plato's Republic. The main topic is justice. What is the nature of justice? We've looked at Cephalus' conception of justice as paying your debts, or more broadly, treating people the way they deserve. There is something to Cephalus' proposal. All things being equal, we should treat people as they deserve. We should pay our debts. Part of Socrates' response is that it is foolish to think that that's all that justice is, not that treating people as they deserve has no bearing on justice at all, but rather that justice is more complicated, and things like the possible harm that our actions might have on others is also crucial. It's also relevant in determining the justice of one's course of action or particular way of organizing society, and that in many cases it undermines or outweighs merely treating people as they deserve. So society's justice is more complicated. But Cephalus walks out, and then someone else takes on the discussion. In the next person that puts forth a conception of justice is Polemarchus. And here's what Polemarchus says: "Hey, wait a minute. He's very sympathetic for Cephalus. He says something very close to Cephalus, though not quite identical. Here's what he says: Justice is to give good to friends and evil to enemies." And it's crucial to point out that in the background is something like that's what they deserve, right? There's this kind of assumption that friends ought to be treated well, enemies ought to be treated poorly, and that ought there is kind of grounded in that's what they deserve because of the relationship they have towards me. It is my being the friend that grounds they deserve my treating them in a particular way. It is my being their enemy that deserves them being treated in a particular way. And this conception of justice as giving good to friends and evil to enemies is very similar, though not quite identical, to the one that Cephalus puts forth. A good way of articulating this in a way that marks it as different from Cephalus is to say that this conception is a conception of justice as loyalty. And loyalty is one of those words that most people don't really think about too much, but everyone has it seems a very good conception of loyalty. So to call someone loyal is to praise them. To say that someone is not loyal is to accuse them, to condemn them. And what Polemarchus is doing is building a conception of justice solidly on loyalty. And again, this is alive and well in many circles. In fact, in many ways, because of our evolutionary history, we were in groups for a long period of time in which we only interacted with our little groups. It was essential for us to be loyal to the group for us to survive, right? We have this very long history that is kind of deep in our collective consciousness to treat those that look like us, that behave like us, that speak like us, that have the same kind of rituals that we do. It is built into our collective consciousness to treat those well, and that is loyalty. It's loyalty towards your group. And if you start looking around, people, this is very natural. It's very ingrained in us to praise acts of loyalty and to condemn acts that are contrary to loyalty. And patriotism is a great example of loyalty. When someone is exalted as being patriotic, they're being exalted or praised on the basis of their seeming or their actual loyalty towards the whole group that is the nation. And the first thing to point out is that there is definitely a very good aspect of loyalty. That there's a reason why most people, when they think of loyalty, they think of something very good. If you're a loyal friend, you will be, willing to sacrifice some of your well-being for the sake of your friend. If you're a loyal family member, you'll be willing to sacrifice some of your well-being for the sake of the family, right? So loyalty typically involves the sacrificing of something for the self, for the thing, the person or group towards which you are loyal, right? So there's this obviously good, right? To being sacrificed for someone else is kind of benevolent and is good, right? So there is something here to loyalty. However, and this is crucial, when that loyalty is used outside of the group that you're loyal, when it's oriented towards others, it quickly becomes vicious. So to point to someone and say, hey, be more patriotic, contribute to the well-being of society. It's a very good thing. Yeah, we should all be contributing to the well-being of society. And patriotism as a way of doing that is wonderful. However, when and that's appealing to loyalty. When that same kind of appeal to patriotism is done for the sake of attacking those outside of the group, it quickly distorts it. It quickly makes it bad. When someone say, "Hey, be patriotic, go and help us kill those others because they're others. Be loyal to our group," which implies disloyalty or attack or exclusion of those not of our group. that's a crucial line in which now it becomes vicious. So loyalty is great when dealing only within the group, right? Treating your brother well is wonderful. That's what good brothers do. Be loyal to your brothers, great. When you're in a position of political power and you treat your brother well by offering a pardon from a crime he committed so he gets away with it, by helping him bury the body because he murdered someone, by giving him a preferential treatment or extra resources or insider information about stock trading or something like that, when you're acting on the basis of loyalty, but outside of the context of the relationship of friends or brothers, and you're affecting society at large. Most of the times, all of the examples I give you are cases of injustice. You provide this partial treatment, this preferential treatment to your brother falsely on the basis of loyalty, but now you've undermined the well-being of others, you undermine the equality of others, you're undermining the justice of the system. So when loyalty is appealed to heal, to help the person within the bounds of the relationship, that's great. When it's outside of it, it becomes detrimental. So here's the picture of soldiers, for example. Suppose bad people, evil people are at the gate, right? They're coming towards the city, they're about to destroy it, they're just barbarians, they have no good reason, just bad people. Here's a call to loyalty, here's a call to patriotism that is wonderful. You call the able men, hey, unite, let's build a group of soldiers, let's defend the innocent people within the walls of the city from the evil forces outside. This is a great call of self-sacrifice, patriotism, uh, for the group, and that's great, right? That's definitely moral. uh, However, when that same kind of group loyalty is used to attack not evil people at the gate that are destroying, but weaker people that are, just because they're other, just because they're different, and attack them or undermine them so that your group is better off, it quickly becomes immoral and unjust. And that's exactly what Socrates is going to point to. Anyway, here's what Polemarchus says. Uh, Justice is treating friends well, doing good to friends. So in times of war, you make allegiance with your friends and you go to war against the enemies. In times of peace, you make contracts and partnership and you treat your friends well. So that's kind of the basic demands of justice. Socrates is not going to be thrilled. And here's what Socrates has a couple of good objections. And here's the important one. Sometimes friends are bad and enemies are good. The mere fact that you're on this side of the city walls, or you're part of this city, does not mean that people in your city are good. That means rather your compatriots doesn't make them good people. And the mere fact that some people are outside of that group does not make them bad people, right? There are good people and bad people everywhere. So if two groups are at war with each other, just because one is your group doesn't mean that is the one that is correct. Doesn't mean that is the one who's fighting for justice. Doesn't mean that is the one that is fighting for justice. Doesn't mean that is the one that has more good people in it. Many times, your friends are bad people and your enemies are good people. And if follow the proposal says give good to your friends and evil to your enemies. That proposal entails giving good to bad people, the ones that are your friends that are bad, and evil to good people, namely those that are enemies and that are good people. And of course, justice cannot demand such a thing. That's preferential treatment. That's abuse of loyalty. That is not justice. Justice cannot demand that the good person give bad to the good, and the good person give good to the bad. That's just like by definition not what justice demands. That's one objection. Here's a second objection that is similar. It's like the same kind of vein. The just person harms no one. To harm something is to make it worse off. Uh, this is Socrates' world. The best part of man is the soul. And what makes the soul worse off is vice. And what makes the soul better off is virtue. The good person, the just person, makes other people, or at least creates occasion in which other people can grow in virtue, can become better. If if a person starts creating occasions for others to become vicious, they are the bad guys in the story, right? They're not being just, at least with regards to those actions. To be a just person is to make the soul of others, so to try to create situations in which the soul of others increase in virtue. That is what it is to be just. If you're making other people vicious, you are doing the wrong thing and you're not a just person, kind of by definition. So the good person cannot harm anyone else. The just person cannot harm anyone else and still be just. Um, Again, when harm means harm to the soul, and harm to the soul is corruption to the soul, and corruption to the soul is vice. So the just person makes others more just, not less just. That's part of what it is to be just. So there's something deeply wrong with the conception of justice as articulated. So the objections to Polemarchus' proposal are in many ways deeper than the objections to Cephalus' proposal. The objection to Cephalus' proposal were along the lines of giving people what they deserve is fine, but it's not the only relevant consideration. Justice is more complicated. So it's an objection that shows that more needs to be told. The objections against Polemarchus show that this kind of tribal kind of group loyalty many times can go bad. And if treated as justice, things will go bad. In fact, if you look at the history of humanity, a lot of the great atrocities have been grounded precisely in this group loyalty, this attacking of others blindly because you're defending your group without thinking whether or not you're justified or whether your group is on the wrong side and so on. Mere group loyalty many times leads to disastrous consequences unless you're thinking about it, unless you're using your reason to identify the right course of action is the wrong course of action. And that's why I chose this picture of people fighting. This is a much more gruesome kind of account of a battle in which uh, it looks pretty gruesome, right? That people are killing each other. And the reason why they're killing each other is because they have different uniforms, right? They're from different groups. And it's far from clear, and that's part of the point, who's right, if anyone. It's mostly group loyalty that is driving this killing, as far as we can tell from the picture. And we should stop and think about whether that's a justifiable picture. And the idea is it can be by itself. Mere group loyalty does not justify violence. Something much higher it's required for justifying those kinds of actions. Okay, I'll stop here. See you next time.